Tec Sounds presents EduTrends.
Hi, we're in Inc. Monterrey, the biggest entrepreneurship festival in Latin America. And today I have a visitor, Tonika Cheek Clayton. Hi, Tonika.
Hi, José.
So Tonika is managing partner at our NewSchools Venture Fund. So Tonika, my first question is, what is NewSchools Venture Fund?
So NewSchools Venture Fund is a venture philanthropy that's based in the United States that's focused on helping every child graduate high school prepared and ready to achieve their most ambitious dreams and goals. And right now, we fundamentally believe that our education system is broken and does not provide a high-quality education to all students, especially students in underserved communities. And so NewSchools Venture Fund, we invest in entrepreneurs that are building innovative school models to better support students from underserved populations. We also believe that EdTech is an integral part of the student learning experience in classrooms. And so we also invest in educators or in entrepreneurs that are building innovative EdTech tools to support students and teachers in the classroom environment. And so we fund quite a few companies. And over the past 4.5 years, I've invested in about 84 companies that most of them are based in the United States, but some of them are based across around the world and are serving some students in the United States. So I lead our EdTech investment area at NewSchools Venture Fund.
And NewSchools Venture Fund is part of our largest venture or fund, or is it related to what?
So we are independent. We're a nonprofit that is funded by either independent donors or large foundations. But we have our own particular strategy, and we have invested over $100 million in the last 5 years in school models and entrepreneurs that are building school models, and then also in EdTech companies. And then we also have another investment area where my colleagues are investing in organizations that are focused on increasing the pipeline of Black and Latino leaders in K-12 schools in the United States. But we're independent. We raise money. So we're kind of like an intermediary because we have funders, whether it's individual donors. Our board helps us quite a bit with fundraising. And then we also have foundations like the Gates Foundation and CZI who are funders of us. But we have quite a few other funders as well.
When you say that the education system is broken, can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so I think, and as a parent, I definitely see this. I have 3 kids. My kids are 14, 11, and 7. I live in Dallas, Texas. And what you see, and most recently with the NAEP scores that just came out, which is the score. Are you familiar with NAEP and the scoring, the standardized test scores that they do in the United States? Where they look at math and reading level proficiencies over time, and all students in districts take these exams, and they do them every 2 years just to see kind of where 4th graders and 8th graders how they're performing. And what they've seen over the past years, the most recent scores just indicated kind of this flatlining level, and then there's a pretty big discrepancy between the performance levels of predominantly white students, Black and Latino students on the lower end in both English language arts and math. And so we've seen these kind of persistent and what some people have called kind of achievement gaps over time. And we fundamentally believe in NewSchools that now with the technology that we have, with the understanding we have of different pedagogy and things that we've learned from different school models in the past, that we have enough to figure out or to reimagine, like how can we make learning in the classroom environment work for all students? And it may be different. We don't pretend to know the right answer, But we believe that if we continue investing in entrepreneurs that are building on kind of the foundational research that they know of what schools work, what types of EdTech tools work, and then putting together a school that's focused on meeting the needs of a particular group of students. If we fund enough entrepreneurs that are reimagining learning and reimagining what the school day looks like, reimagining all of the different components that are necessary to meet the needs of the students, if we fund enough of those, we think that in 10 years or so, we'll have identified some really strong models that we can start to scale and promote and move around the country. And so it's not to say that there are some, glimmers of light out there, and there are some models that, we've already started to look at and try to invest in and promote, but there's such a long way to go. And so, but we still believe that that teachers and leaders that are really focused on education and focused on meeting the students' needs, they're the ones with the ideas and the answers, and we've got to find money to continue to promote innovation and education to get to where we need to go and to fix the system.
So tell me about your cycle for decision-making on investment, and how do you evaluate the returns of those investments? Because I imagine that the returns will not be financial, will be more on learning.
Yeah, so on the EdTech side, about 5 years ago, we decided that the best use of venture philanthropy, because we're giving companies free money, essentially. And it's not free in the sense that we don't expect something from it, but it's free in that it's non-dilutive. We're not asking for equity, and we're not asking for a financial return, to your point. So the way that we decide to make an investment is we look for areas within the market where we say teachers, students, thought leaders in the space are saying, we need better EdTech tools to do this. And then we make a decision. He's like, okay, so the first one was science. We did a challenge focused on science. And we've done 7 challenges over the past 4.5 years, one in science, one in middle and high school math, one for English language learning populations, one for early learning, one for the future of work, which connects K-12 learning to careers and college. And then most recently, one focused on the expanded definition of student success, which is a big focus right now in the United States, where a lot of schools are thinking about how can they incorporate social and emotional learning into the current school day. And so those were the different challenge areas that we ended up focusing on. And the reason we chose those is because we identified those as a high need area that was really important for helping students in underserved student populations. And so to get to your question about how do we measure impact, like what and what type of returns. And so we launch a challenge, and we outline in the challenge, here are the critical needs that we've identified that we need EdTech tools to address within this particular area. We then we invite EdTech companies to apply to this challenge. They tell us how they're meeting those needs. We go through a whole diligence process, and then we ultimately select kind of the ones that we think are most promising. We give them funding. We bring them together so that they can learn from each other, and we build a cohort where we bring together the entrepreneurs themselves, but also researchers and other people that are invested in that space. So, and I'll tell you what our impact goals are. So, one is we're focused on improving the product. Every EdTech company is always kind of in an iterative process of improving products. One thing that our golden star, our North Star, what we're looking for is, does your company have rigorous evidence of a positive impact on student outcomes, right? Early stage companies are not, most of them are not there yet, right? Let's be clear. But we want to give them the tools and support to help them do that, to help them get there. And so in addition to the funding that we give them, we also provide research funding where we actually fund a research study, and we fund other research activities to help build the entrepreneur and the team's capacity to do research on their own, but also to engage in the research process with the goal of everyone getting there. Currently in our portfolio, about 25% of the companies in our portfolio have what we call rigorous evidence, to that their products positively support student learning. Now, when we lower the bar from rigorous to some evidence, it goes up to like 80%. So, and we recognize that when we're investing in, sometimes early stage products, early stage companies, it's going to take a while to get there. And it's going to take time, but we want to make sure that we're helping them build the research capacity to be able to do that. So that's one goal, is to improve the products. Our second goal is obviously grow and scale the reach of these products that we've invested in, that we believe are promising and helping students in underserved communities. So it's really important for us to know that these companies are actually meeting the needs of those students. And so one thing that we do is we do these demographic reports to better understand their customer base and which students they're serving. Because we've seen a lot of companies that have applied to our challenges that have built business models that are reliant on either parents paying or reliant on, independent schools, affluent schools. And we recognize that the business model will not even allow them to ever reach students in underserved communities. So making sure that our investments, the products that we've invested in, are actually reaching the students that most need it, is another key important thing. Another thing that we monitor and we track closely in all of the investments that we make, we ask them for data for over 5 years, so we can look at their growth or not growth, because we have our running list of companies that have either failed or stagnant, as we say. But another thing that's really important to us is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we want to make sure that the products that we're investing in and that we're promoting are thinking about those things, because we believe that in order for you to build products that can really meet the needs of the students you're trying to serve, your team needs to be reflective of those students. Your research processes needs to involve the students, and you need to be in those classrooms and learning and understanding what the teacher challenges are, so that you can build your product and your innovations to better meet those needs. Because the experience that you'll get if you're in an independent school or an affluent school versus in a school that doesn't have the same level of resources is just different. And we know that tools that are co-designed with the people in mind are going to be better for those students. So that's another thing that we're really focused on is diversity, equity, inclusion. And the way we track that over time, we ask specific questions about team diversity, but also overall staff diversity. We have the numbers that come in, so we see things over time. And then we're still working on other ways, because we recognize that is a whole complicated thing that companies are trying to take on and really trying to deal with in a real way. And so we see ourselves as kind of our own work in progress as an organization that's focused on this. So we see ourselves as people that are trying to provide resources and support to help companies build whether it's their strategies or their practices to support diversity, equity, inclusion. So those are some of the things that I guess we're thinking about in terms of impact and how we measure that impact.
Yes, a very interesting approach for those enterprises. I would like to add that I subscribe to that approach. We are on the process of finalizing the call for proposals of our accelerator, EdTech accelerator, which is focused on lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. We'll have 10 finalists that will do 1 week workshop in Mexico City, and then we'll choose 3 of them to work on a 4-month project. They will get some money. But I think that the most important thing is not only the money, is the opportunity of co-develop a product or a service with our continuous education area here in Tec de Monterrey. And they will have also a research group that will be doing research on their platform, on the results of their technology and educational models. So they will get out from this is validation of the product with their market of at least Tec de Monterrey continuing education students. Some research. I don't know how rigorous it will be, but it will depend on what we have, and also some money to continue and go for more scale and other possibilities of funding also.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's one of the things that we have found. Also, we have a lot of projects founded by Tec de Monterrey for faculty members. We found around 130 projects every year, $1.25 million for those projects in teams, around 3-4 faculty members. And we do an evaluation of those projects using a guide that we call Scala E, which is Scala is like a stair that gives the idea of improvement, that you climb the stair, but it's also a scale that you measure things. And we did we put a pool of these projects with experts to see what of those projects have more possibilities of being transferred or commercialized. Yeah. And then we did a regression to see what were the different parameters of this tool, this evaluation tool, Scala E, that had the most weight on the decision on the with the knowing of the experts. And we find out that learning outcomes was one of the most important. The other one was scalability, and the other one is the possibility of transferring that to other fields, not only, for instance, science, but other places. So that's the stage we are on our projects and looking for transferring.
Right, that's awesome. I mean, one thing that we've really been trying to do a better job of connecting our entrepreneurs with other research partners and trying to figure out how to help them fund this, because a lot of early stage entrepreneurs are, just struggling trying to get their product developed, struggling to, get their product out there. And then they're like, and you expect us to invest in how to do these research studies. And one thing that we would love to, we wish that could happen, I guess, in the United States, is there be a better connection between researchers and entrepreneurs, because what we oftentimes see is there'll be some academic researchers at a university that'll come up with a product that is not necessarily usable because they've done it kind of in the lab, but haven't figured out, like, how can I actually sell and scale this? And does it have all the other needs to do that? And then, or we'll see teachers that have, been in the field, have come up with a product idea that know it can work just based on their experiences, but don't have the connection to, like, the academic researcher that can really help them substantiate, that their product is working and how to get to the outcomes. And so bridging those connections between some of the entrepreneurs that don't have, like, a research background, but then also the academic researchers, helping them, connect with entrepreneurs that have, that understand the business side and how something can actually scale. Because to your point, if it works, but it is so onerous to implement that it's not going to actually, work in the classroom, that's not helpful. And then if it doesn't have a model that would allow it to scale, then that also, is worthless too.
Yeah, we are looking at like a matchmaking process of researchers that have good research and products, methodologies, technology, with young entrepreneurs that want to do something that has social impact, but they don't have the idea, and to pair them. So we will be doing some experiments, hopefully next year.
So I have to check back in with you to see how that's going. We might need to do something like that. Yeah.
In our next podcast in a couple of years. Why don't you tell us some examples of the technologies or enterprises that you have worked with that have been successful to solve part of this broken system that we have in education?
Yeah, so There's been several. I think a couple that come to mind right now. So one is Vocabulary. It is a company that decided to use hip hop as kind of an engagement tool to connect students with learning. And it's funny because I don't know if you've heard of the musical Hamilton. And its success. They were actually started before Hamilton, right? So when I talked to the founder, he's like, we've been doing this and, Hamilton is kind of taken off. But they, early on, they recognized the power of hip hop and student engagement and wanted to use that to help students engage with history and science. And they kind of bootstrapped their way up. We were their first investor, and they were at the time they really wanted to scale, and we're trying to figure out different ways to scale. One thing that the company founder really recognized as a limitation for them is there were two white male founders, and hip hop started in the boogie down in the Bronx with Black and Latino folks starting it. So they I think they felt a little bit insecure just about being white founders, and then also not feeling like their team represented the diversity that needed to truly engage. And so one thing that they really focused on when they were thinking about scaling is one, on the hires and sales team, they wanted to expand the level of diversity they had there, and also on the product development side. And so once they did that, and they started hiring more Black and Latino folks. And he said it kind of took on a life of its own because the product started to change once they had a different makeup in terms of the product development team. Their sales kind of took off. They got additional funding. And then they ultimately ended up being acquired. In the past year, they were acquired by Nearpod. But their growth, I want to say they grew like 2 to 3 times since we made that initial investment. But it was one of those companies that really embraced kind of the diversity, equity, inclusion piece as it related to their scale, but also to improving their product and making it even better for the communities that they were trying to serve.
This is an example of technology and strategy that you can introduce in a regular school. But you said that you were also interested on innovative schools.
Yeah.
I think that also the school system that we have has been replicating the same process for the last more than 100 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you are founding or helping to found that innovates the school system?
Yeah, so I mean, this is great because people always ask, like, what do you mean when you say innovative, right? And while I'm not the expert on the school side because I do the EdTech investments, one of the schools that we invested in that's actually inside a traditional public school is a school called Solar Prep for Girls. And it's a diverse by design school. They make sure, and when we say diverse by design, they make sure that there's representation across the socioeconomic spectrum, meaning you have a certain percentage whose parent or students whose parents make below a certain income level, and so on and so forth. And also they look very closely at diversity levels. So it's a very diverse all-girls school that's focused on science, technology, and math. And it's in where I live. It's actually in Dallas, Texas. But the innovation here, interestingly, is that it is an all-girls school that is focused on STEM, that also integrates a key mindfulness and meditation program as part of the experience. They have a full-out maker space where the girls build, electronics, all different types of things. They also incorporate, this mindfulness meditation work. And the founder is Latina. And they have been very successful. We made an investment in them. I want to say, well, one, our money, like at the time, she was an assistant principal somewhere. She said she had this vision for this school, and our funding allowed her to stop working, start the vision, and get that campus open. And this is kind of how we see our funding as kind of initiating or allowing for entrepreneurs that have these innovative ideas to actually start these schools. So she was able to start the school within Dallas ISD, which is a more traditional school district that had a superintendent at the time that is open to kind of empowering principals to come up with new ideas and to start schools. So this school has been around for about, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And since then, there's been another school that's focused on boys. And so it's like a solar prep and all boys school that has come from that. But that's like one example kind of within a more traditional district that we want to see more of for sure. And then I'll just add that we have gotten to a point where we're wondering, like, are we missing something? Because when we get these proposals, they don't seem very innovative to us anymore. Like we're going through stuff and we're like, we're like, is there something about the framing of how we're framing what's needed as the ingredients of a school that's limiting the ideas and what people can build? And so, I feel like we have some work to do on our end, but I just personally believe that the generation, at least my kids' generation, the way they learn things, the way they're able to engage with technology and just, call on Alexa or Siri or whatever, and I don't know if they use the same names here, to learn things on their own. I feel like that generation is going to, once they become the teachers, the digital natives become teachers, I feel like that's when we're going to see like things we're not even thinking of in terms of innovative school models and how people want to structure experiences, but then also how to really integrate technology in the learning experience.
Hopefully we can shortcut the system and do it in less time.
Right. We're trying.
Yes. So recently you made a report on the use of technology in schools. What did you learn?
Yeah. So we just, as part of our work to really understand what the needs are from educators and students, for each of the challenges that I talked about that we did earlier, we would do market research and we would do interviews, and sometimes we did small surveys. But we thought it was time for us to do a more comprehensive survey. And we partnered with Gallup because of their credibility, the level of rigor that they put into doing surveys. And so we surveyed over 3,000 teachers across the nation in the United States. We surveyed over 1,000 principals, over 1,000 district administrators, and then about over 2,500 students between the grades 3 and 12. So for the teachers, those were the teachers and administrators, that was pre-K through 12. And we asked them a lot of different questions around their use of EdTech and their perceptions of EdTech. And so one of the key findings was that, and I think we were even surprised at how many teachers say that they use EdTech to teach daily. Around 65% of teachers say that they use it daily, and those teachers, 53% of teachers said that their students use it, EdTech, to learn daily. So one, that just says in and of itself that EdTech is a pretty integral part. And then when you talk about just maybe you don't use it daily, but you use it at least once or multiple times a week, that number just jumps up to well over 90%. So that was one big takeaway. Another point that I think sometimes we take for granted in the United States when thinking about kind of where other countries are relative to where we are in terms of access to internet and Wi-Fi. I want to say over 96% of teachers, students said they have access to Wi-Fi at their schools, internet, which says a lot about the infrastructure in the United States, because just 10 years ago, we weren't there. And so there has been a lot of investment in the country to make sure that the infrastructure can allow for schools to be able to access the internet so that they can utilize EdTech tools. So another thing, so there's a lot of different directions that we can go into with the survey, but I think some of the most important points were just understanding what teachers' priorities were when they're selecting digital tools. So overall, when we asked them to say, what are your top 3 things that you're looking for? One was personalizing learning, personalizing instruction for students. The second one that appeared most often was providing immediate and actionable feedback on students' progress. And then the third one was engaging students in teaching and learning. And so it was interesting to see, what teachers prioritized, and then relative to principals and administrators, which slightly different but overlapping priorities. And it kind of makes sense when you think about where they sit and proximity to the actual student and what they're held accountable for. The principals, their top priority was making sure they could provide actionable feedback for students' progress, followed by, does it align to the Common Core or to the state standards for what?
It's part of their KPIs.
Yes, for sure. And then their third one was improving student learning outcomes. And then for district leaders, their top priority was does it impact student learning outcomes? And their second was, does it align to the core? And then I'm blanking on their third one right now, but it was like maybe easy to use or something like that. But it was interesting to see kind of the different but overlapping priorities across those different groups. Some highlights that came out. So it was important for us to get the student voice too, and I think, generally speaking, students are pretty positive about EdTech and their use in the classrooms. Elementary school kids, they used it relatively less than middle and high school in the class, and they wanted. One question we asked is, do you wish you could use it more? Elementary school students are like, yes, like 65% of them or something said, yes, they wish they could do it more. They said, they're fun. The tools are fun. The tools are interesting, just generally very positive. Middle schoolers were generally positive, but they said they wish the tools could be more fun. They wanted more games and things that would reward them for their success. And then high schoolers were less about, they were less focused on fun and more like they want tools to be more interesting. They want the tools to have like practical features, like allow me to track my own learning progress and things like that. So some interesting things kind of emerged from the student surveys that we did. Also, some kind of, I would say, mildly depressing things emerged from the student. We asked questions like, does your schoolwork make you want to learn more? And this is independent of EdTech, just 3 out of 10 middle schoolers and 3 out of 10 high schoolers said that their schoolwork wants to make them learn more. Whereas the flip side, for elementary students, 7 out of 10 said that. So, there's some shift happening between, elementary, middle, and high. Their perceptions of school and the or whether or not it sparks curiosity and makes them want to learn.
They don't see how they can transfer what they're learning to real complex situations.
Right. And we asked another question about, can you connect what you're learning to life, future careers and life outside of school? And basically that number was pretty low too. I want to say it was 4 out of 10 high schoolers said that, which, it's like we can do so much better than that, and we should. And so hence why we're looking for teachers, education entrepreneurs that can do that work. But those are some kind of like highlights and overviews from the study that we did from Gallup.
Yes, maybe one of the things that can be done, and I've talked about this with other people, is to push down some of the skills from college to high school, so that what you see in high school is more like, I would say, work relevant, so that people can see not only the theoretical part that normally you learn at high school, but also a more practical approach. And I like this report because it puts also the student's voice very loud. And I was thinking also on some KPIs or public policies that voice the needs of students. Imagine that you can measure engagement, personalized learning, and immediate feedback, and it's part of the things that you are measure as a professor or intendant or whatever.
Yes.
That would be very interesting. Tonika, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. We're arriving to the end of our podcast. So my last question is, if you can imagine in 10 years the use of technology for these disadvantaged communities, how would you like to see that future? What's your foresight?
Yeah, so 10 years, what I would love to see, especially in communities that need it most. I would love to see the students in communities or in classrooms that are connected with different classrooms, maybe across the country, across the world, where they're able to learn from teachers that look like them. They'll have an experience that incorporates teachers and people that look like them. That they'll have an experience where technology can connect them with learning all over the world. Whatever they want to learn, they'll be inspired to really take ownership of their learning and have the access and tools that they need to do that. The teachers will continue to be the guides and help facilitate what's needed, what's expected to learn. But the way it's done in a collaborative way where they're able to engage with their peers and other students, but at the same time, they'll have their own personal journey that they'll be on. So there'll be opportunities for them to undergo challenges and projects that allows them to learn not just kind of the academic content that they need to learn, but also those other important skills that we know are important for success. And so I think technology is going to play a key role in allowing the teachers to really guide students and help personalize the learning to meet their needs. But also, I think technology is powerful in allowing collaboration and connection between students that are in one community connecting with other communities and other communities around the world. And so I think in 10 years, we'll see a lot more of that happening. We see some of it happening now, but I think the average classroom, particularly in the United States, isn't seeing that level of engagement and connection. And so I think in 10 years, we're going to see a lot more of that.
I hope we do.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Tonika.
You're welcome.
For more information, visit observatory.tech.mx/EduTrends podcast. Thanks to Tecnológico de Monterrey and the Tec Sounds team. Tec Sounds producer, Miguel Mejia. EduTrends producer, Esteban Venegas and Christian Guijosa. Post-production, Max Perez. Stay tuned for the next episode of EduTrends and visit Tec Sounds in your favorite podcast app for other great shows and content.